Hey, morning everybody, and welcome to Talking Niagara with me, Peter Giblett, and him, Dave Wheeler. Morning, Dave. How are you?
Good morning. Yes, how are you
I'm good. I'm
on
good.
this rainy day?
It's not raining here, although I think it has been overnight.
Yeah, there was thunderstorms last night.
Mm. Weather? Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't hear any, but I was dead tired last night. I think it's because I kept waking up the night before. You
nervous
know?
about your court.
No, no, nothing to do with that. Just waking up. Just waking up.
Hmm.
Just hate it when that happens.
Yeah, that's
Well,
that happens to me a couple times a year, where I can't
mm,
seem to sleep.
yeah.
Luckily, I'm usually not that bad to sleep. I can sleep fairly well most of the time.
Yeah. Well, today I've got another LTB appearance.
Oh
I'm
wow,
busy. I'm busy all week.
how did it go yesterday?
Well, that one was adjourned,
Yeah,
but I had to sit. It's a case of sometimes you have to, even though the thing's adjourned, you have to actually go there.
yeah,
Is to
yeah.
what the protocol. Sometimes the protocol requires it, right?
Huh.
And
The law is painfully slow.
well, I'm going to a provincial court matter for for two Niagara Falls municipal things tomorrow. One's about setting the date, and the other's about um, setting up, trying to get some negotiations moving.
Okay.
Right. But you know, those things you kind of wait a month, and you have half an hour, and then you wait a month and have half an hour.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, it is what it is. Not complaining at the system, because in fact that system is there for a reason, right? And morning, Mike.
Indeed, it is.
Yep, yeah. All right. Okay, so let's go on. First story of the day was, I think, was important to get through. This one is the death at the steel mill. A local person, a Hamilton worker, was killed at DeFasco last week, and seemingly kind of crushed between two vehicles. Now, it doesn't actually say. I didn't find in here that it said whether those vehicles were inside the plant or whether that was like in the parking lot or something.
Well, it's probably outside, uh,
Yeah.
judging by the one picture where it has it roped off there. Uh,
Yeah.
I know a guy. Like this just tells you the dangers. The vehicles that we're talking about are very big here.
Yeah.
I uh, I got myself in the middle of by accident when I was going to work in the BOSC in Stelco Lake Erie Works. They have these big slab movers, and they can't see that around them, and
Well, I get
you're not
that.
supposed
Yeah.
to have cars around them. But somehow I made my way in there, and I was in these among these slab guys, and I had to get quick because I could tell that they wouldn't have seen me anyway, So anything can happen, and
Yeah.
I also know a guy who was killed at the old Atlas Steel. I had talked to him a week or two before he got killed. I was in I was in Sobeys, and I saw him, and he says, "Well, guess what? I got my job back at Atlas," and he's an electrician there. And I said, "Wow, that's something else. You worked there, then you work. This about the second time you got rehired by Atlas. And I was pretty happy to get back in there, and and the next thing I heard, at Sobeys again, I bumped into a guy, oh, you know so and so. Oh yeah, I just talked to him, and I started blabbing on about how cool it was, and some kind of recollection I had of him when we were in high school. And the guy just shook his head, says, "No, he just died. He got he got killed by a front end loader. I think it was a front end loader, but it was a big one of those big vehicles." and and there are so many things that can happen at
Yeah.
a steel mill or any other heavy industries.
Yeah.
There are always, you try to get down to zero accidents. It's impossible, but that's your goal, to shoot for
Oh,
zero accidents. But there are so many variables that you cannot account for all of them.
yeah.
And always something like this happens. There was a guy when
Okay.
I was
So,
working at down at Lake Erie Works, the not at Lake Erie Works, but the power plant. There was a laborer there killed when I was working there. So there's
okay.
always these intangibles.
Yeah. And the worker who died, his name is Marek Oleszczuk, and I'm probably butchered that name. And if you want to actually leave your condolences, I've just actually put a Facebook link down in the comments beneath for anybody who wants to leave a Facebook comment.
His family has released his name in the spirit of a community service. Actually, they released his name so that people could put a name to the person,
Yeah.
and have everyone remember to be careful, because Tafasco is not a bad. They don't have a union. They don't have a union, but they're still a fairly pretty good place to work. I've worked there, I don't know, several times throughout my career as a contractor, being in there. There was I know a guy there, I think it was Stelco. There's always something. I said, because I know a guy that got his fingers crushed off, because even though the machine was locked out, it wasn't locked out throughout its entire cycle. So it had stored energy. When somebody tripped the switch, it completed its cycle, and the guy lost his fingers.
Yeah.
Okay. There's another story there, the same situation where a guy was working and the machine was locked out, but nobody had figured they should lock out the machine after it completed its complete cycle, because there's still stored energy in the machine if it's a hydraulic or pneumatic system.
Yeah.
And the guy was working in there and got crushed to death. There's all sorts of stories like that where the person should have been protected, but there was a flaw in the lockout procedure.
Yeah. But presumably with those lockout procedures, they learn the lesson, they fix the problem.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it has to be reactive.
I know. But then again, you didn't know there was a problem before there was a problem.
Quite often there's just something that doesn't. I don't know. There's a miss in it, and I don't know. My own brother lost his fingers when a hoist that was supposed to be good for 6,600 pounds failed when he had a load on it of 4,600 pounds, and the thing failed, and he lost his fingers on his left hand.
Yeah.
So and why would this thing fail? So you are confident. It's rated and tested for 4,600 pounds. How do you know it's going to fail? You did everything you're supposed to do.
And it's the same with a lot of things like that. There was something called metal fatigue, and you don't know when metal fatigue sets in. There's been a number of industrial accidents that have been due to things like metal fatigue. Also, a plane fell out of the sky one time, and they couldn't figure it out other than they eventually said, well, it had to be metal fatigue, because no individual part that failed. It's just the whole plane failed.
Well, that was when the Comet, the British had a jet airliner, the first, I think, the first major jet airliner. It was the Comet, and it fell to pieces in the sky.
Yeah,
and that's when they began to reassemble all that's when the procedure came to reassemble all the pieces of the plane, and they found it was metal fatigue, but they couldn't
Yeah.
find it
Yeah.
ahead of time. So unfortunately, a lot of these things happen that way. But anyway, unions are. We find a lot of complaints about unions going forward and unions trying to protect themselves. I saw a congressional meeting when well, I don't know, they were trying to beat up on a union leader. Make no mistake, the reason why you have any safety at all in these places is because a union was created. They're the ones, and Dofasco doesn't have a union, but they have something similar to it. And Stelco does have a union. But
Yeah.
even with the unions, you're going to have problems and safety problems.
Oh.
But you'd have a lot more people dying if it wasn't for the unions insisting on safe work conditions. And as we remember, that train strike, the CNCP rail strike, was about safety. It was about pushing its employees to the points where they were fatigued and accidents for this. And they were forced back to work, but they had better get on this thing, because if there's one more accident, the government's going to look pretty bad. I can understand why they mandated the workers back to work, because I can understand the reason.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it was the right idea to mandate them back to work, but they mandated them back to work because they were essential workers in an economy that if not for the rails, we would be toast. So I can understand that part, but they had better zero in on those safety concerns for sure.
The other thing is, for example, there's a number of projects that I've been aware of over the years, whereby deaths were at one point. You wind the clock back 100 years. Death, if you were working on, say, a new bridge, the death would be an expected number of deaths on building the new bridge, whereas, for example, that brand new bridge that was built across to Detroit to the Gordie Howe Bridge, there would be no such expectation in the modern era.
No, it'd be tragedy if even one guy lost his life.
Exactly.
Well, nowadays, like back in the day, back in the 50s, early 60s, I was one of my teachers for a course that I was taking regarding the trades. It was an old guy then. He's probably dead now, but he said that they expected one death per every $1 million on a blast furnace refit. So if the blast furnace refit was $3 million, they expected three dead, and that was part of the insurance thing. That was all part of their stats.
And it used to be like when they were building the railway, they expected one death per mile.
There's that expectation but for the insurance companies say, okay, well, you're going to do a furnace refit. This is your insurance. This is what we expect to pay off for dead and injured workers. So you have to pay X amount of money. We know we're going to have if your furnace rebuilds $3 million, so you're going to have 3 deaths. Sadly, and those things have changed, and it's largely because of unions. They won't accept that. They won't accept.
And we shouldn't. And even and no employer should be accepting of that. We want to minimize the deaths, but this was an unusual one.
I think 130 guys died when they're doing the Hoover Dam, something like that.
Yeah. So, that doesn't surprise me. I seem to have heard that statistic somewhere before.
Yeah, it was a large amount of guys dying. The Rideau Canal, I think, took 300 lives, but that was partly because of the Welland Canal. When they built the Welland Canal, I remember when I worked at a funeral stone company that made monuments, gravestones. we had an old guy come in one time who lost his brother working on the Welland Canal. And they were paupers at the time, so he couldn't put up a graveyard, because they're new Canadians in the early 20s working on the canal, hydro canal. And so we had to find his body or find his plot so that we could put a stone on it. And it was in Popper's Field. It was really hard to find him.
Yeah.
Because there were almost all the places in that particular part didn't have markers on them. They couldn't judge from one to another. They could only tell us it's in here, about a yard here from a yard there, sort of thing. So
yeah.
The old boy got his closure, but that was 50 years after his brother, or 60 years 50 years after his brother died. More than 50 years.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, none of us like industrial accidents. Any comments? Yeah. So comments. I was scared on the face of a hot steel chip that somehow came off my milling machine at a Stelco plant in Welland. It flew inside of my face guard and rested atop my cheek and safety glasses. Wow. Yeah, that's the kind of close call you don't want, Morning, Karen. All right. Okay. Mike, I said, I find the union's health and safety much better. Yeah. Okay. That's what Dave was saying. I know a guy that got crushed by 10,000 pounds. We know that guy as well, Mike. Yeah, I've heard your story. Were you 6 inches taller, I think, but at the time that happened?
No, I think he was short and stubby like me, but after he got crushed, he got elongated.
Okay, Mr. Biker says, bless his memory. Yeah. Sad. Yes. Right.
Well, and bless his family for releasing his name as a reminder that this was a real human being that died with a family and all that. And a few days ago, he was alive and well, went home to his family, and now he isn't.
Yeah. And the other thing to say here is, Mike was saying that on the Welland Canal, 137 people died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is because they were brand new Canadians, Italians, Slavs, Polish people who would hardly speak the language. They were put in there, and they had no real representation. They were expected to dangerous works, being untrained, and pretty much if somebody dies, just get a new one.
Yeah,
that was the attitude, and I found that attitude down in Florida. Look, say what you might about Florida, how great it is, and all this other stuff, but they rely heavily on illegal labor or immigrant labor. And when I was watching them working on a condo building, which I was, my friend had a unit in there, and I was visiting her, and there was guys on a swing stage coming down from the side of the building working on windows, and I'm telling you, like, the swing stage was okay. They had harnesses and all that, but nothing was done properly. And I see, and then you have to have two guys in a swing stage so you can go down at the same pace. You have to have a guy on one end and a guy on the other end when you come up and down. Well, they got one guy in a swing stage, and when he had to go down, he tip his end of the swing stage down. And I looked at it like he could follow it, and I said to one of the people there on the beach, and I'm looking at this, and they don't seem to be too concerned. I says, you know what, that is so wrong. That's so unsafe. If a safety inspector comes, they're going to chew the guy out. He says, no, they all pretend they don't speak English, and if he does fall off of there, get injured, or dies, they just go down to the bus station and get a new one because it was illegal.
Yeah.
and they had the swing stage up there, but they had no softeners on the edge. So the ropes coming down from the roof, draped down, the ropes were the right ropes and everything, but there was no softeners at the edges where the rope could cut into a corner. They have to have softeners on, no softeners, you know. And then I'm thinking, oh my God, you know, and that used to be like it was
Well,
here.
that chafing across a corner, especially a stone corner, is what breaks a rope often, isn't it? That's why you have those softeners up there.
That's why you should have them, yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't know they were called softeners, but yeah, thank you for educating me. Yeah, I've seen them plenty of times.
I don't know, and I don't know, and if we keep bringing temporary foreign workers here, we're going to find more deaths too, because that's what's going to happen. The temptation to use temporary foreign workers because they don't have to be as protected as much, or anything like that. Something happens to them, who cares? You know,
that's a good warning, actually. There, Dave. It's a good warning. You know, let's make sure that we have people doing the jobs who know how to do the jobs.
Yes, and if they're temporary foreign workers, you know they're not going to get as much protection.
The challenge there is not that they can't do the job; it's that they haven't necessarily had the right training.
Yeah, and seriously, how are they going to be able to tell anyone that, you know, I don't like this ball arrest thing you got here, you're giving me, you know, like
they don't feel safe with it.
Yeah, and they're not going to say anything because they'll lose their job.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So, okay. Moving on. Kenya is to send 600 more police to Haiti.
Yeah. Oh, this one goes back a couple of days. Yeah, I have to refresh myself on this one.
Well, basically, the Kenyans have had police in Haiti to help fight gangs and control some of the capital, Port-au-Prince, because of unrest in Haiti. And this has been going on for quite some time. We reported on it either earlier in the year or last year, I believe.
What, as you remember, Joe Biden tried to talk Trudeau into sending troops down to Haiti, and he didn't do that. Joe Biden tried to convince Canadians that they should go in and help police Haiti. Well, that doesn't work because every Western nation, basically Canada, the United States, have tried to put troops in there to fix things up. Bill Clinton has admitted that his own sort of ability or procedures were really bad when they went into Haiti. He did everything wrong, he said. They made it a welfare country. The country is being unstable continually. It doesn't have a solid economy that it can work on. The people are poor. Western attempts to make it a better country have made things much worse.
Yeah.
And so I think basically what they want to do is get one thing, get Africans in there because they're the same color as the people that live there. I think that's probably part of it. When all these white people come in with their troops and their police and their economists and all that other stuff.
Yeah, you can see that.
Yeah, I think there's a kind of a feeling, well, we're unworthy, and they're telling us all this stuff what to do. I think probably also because Kenya comes from a developing country that have much more attuned to what's happening in Kenya. They also have a lot of poor people. They also have a lot of a developing economy. They could probably identify the problems more readily. The problem was made much worse by the West under the leadership of Clinton back in the 90s when Haiti had huge problems. So what did we do? We marched in, we brought them rice, we brought them food, we brought them all these other things.
It didn't.
But what happened is we undermined the farmers because
Yeah.
we brought in all kinds of rice and things that undercut the farmers. So now the farmers put down their hoes and got in line for a bag of rice like everybody else,
Yeah.
like a handout. The same thing happened to cobblers. So they bring in shoes and they bring in clothes. And one of the big things we used to do is bring bundles of clothes and send them down to poor people in different parts of the world. And what happens is it undercuts their seamstresses and their tailors and their other clothier makers.
Yeah.
So now everybody gets a free pair of jeans or jeans very cheap, or a pair of shoes because we have everybody's donating shoes. So what happens to the person that makes the shoes or sells the shoes in Haiti? They don't have a job. So they get back. They get.
That's a fundamental difference, because when I was in Kenya a long time ago, back in the late 80s, I was wearing a sandal that I bought in a British store, and a strap on it, with several straps on it, started to break while I was in Kenya, and my wife's uncle basically took me to. He said, "No worry about this. I'll get it fixed for you." Took me to a cobbler, because those shoes in the West, you just throw them in the bin and get a new pair.
Yes.
He took us to a cobbler. The cobbler basically, did it. Repaired the shoe. That shoe lasted 10 more years, right? That slippers lasted 10 more years. It was a fantastic pair of slippers. And yet, he did this thing, and it's like 20 shillings he was the fix.
Yeah, you see,
like 10 cents or something,
Yeah. So even a Kenyan or in a particular case a Haitian, if their shoes break, they just go get a handout rather than go to the cobbler and get them fixed. It takes the cobbler out of the economy, and the self-sufficiency out of the out of the economy as well. We found this.
And that particular, that particular cobbler, it was like I could have thrown those shoes away, but that was that was an inventive, different way of handling the problem. When we were kids, we went to cobblers to repair shoes, right? Get new soles on your shoes. You go to a cobbler, right?
Yep. Yeah, I still remember that too.
Not anymore. We don't do that anymore, right? Because in fact, actually, you go and get you're taking a $20 pair of shoes to a cobbler to put a $40 sole on it, and then he's going to charge you $20 on top.
Yeah,
the economics don't make sense.
Well, we find this problem the idea of the Western idea of economies coming into like I'll talk about the Caribbean again, when the World Monetary Fund went in there and they're trying to sort out their economy. And they said, well, you got to bring in your carrots from Europe because they're cheaper. So the carrot farmer in Jamaica now can't make a living growing carrots. But the carrots on the market in Jamaica are a little bit cheaper, but they come from somewhere else. The problem is when the economy fails and you cannot trade for that carrot, now you have what used to have a carrot farmer, let's say, that is now out of work and his fields are not being tilled because he couldn't make money as. So when the Western nations come in and try to aka fix the economy of developing countries, they've made more of a mess than anything a lot of times because they don't understand the economy of the island or the country that they're in.
Yeah.
They don't try to.
I think that's what's behind these Kenyans going there. Basically, there's 400 current Kenyans on the ground in Haiti, and I saw his name. Kenyan President William Ruto has basically saying that they're adding 600 more, so they're bringing their force up to a total of 1,000 to support and help, change in Haiti.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge job because the gangs, there is pretty much lawlessness. The police that are there are undermanned and undertrained. So when we bring this military force and the police force from Kenya, they're going to have a long, hard haul because the gangs are well armed and well moneyed. So I think what their strategy is going to be is because it's hard. It's going to be hard to take over the cities. I think what they're going to try to do is take over the countryside first, and sort of cut off one city from another, and then kind of work their way into the cities block by block. It's going to be a tough, long haul. And dangerous.
And they're basically looking to try and protect people and restore security. But I think that's going to be a hard challenge, as you say there. And to a large extent, trying to restore normality to Port-au-Prince is a whole heap different problem than doing it on the villages.
Yeah, but there has been some criticism in Haiti at the lack of decisive move against gangs. A UN human rights expert who has just been there said the mission was inadequately equipped and needed helicopters as well as night vision goggles and drones. The multinational security support mission, which is now made up of mostly of the Kenyans, authorized by the UN Security Council in 2023, was far from less than a quarter of its planned contingent. So already they're undermanned, they're underfunded, they're undersupplied. How much success do you think this is going to have if they keep doing that? Despite an international embargo on arms and munitions continue to be smuggled into the country, allowing gangs to extend their control to new territories. The UN expert had visited the southeast of the country where he said the police lacked the logistical and technical capacities to counter gangs. So this is a situation where the gangs are better armed and better
and again, probably they're talking about night vision goggles and drones, and probably the gangs have got night vision goggles and drones type thing, right? Computers and all the rest of it.
The only plus thing there they have is they have to be very worried because the gangs have a balance of power between each other, and of course they're going to be fighting. So if the UN forces go in and decrease.
It hasn't.
Right.
Yeah, it has.
Hi, champ. I'm on my radio program. What's up?
Oh, okay. I'll call you later. I'll talk to you later.
All right, bye-bye.
Yeah. That's okay. Yeah, and
the phone on that early. Okay. Anyway, So, what was I going to say? So the problem here is, what else are we going to do?
Well, there's a number of issues going on in Haiti. Sexual violence has dramatically increased. There's as many as 700,000 people now displaced and homeless. The situation described here as bordering on the impossible, right? And this is by a UN expert who has spent time in the country.
So it's a matter of lawlessness. The rule of law is breaking down. When you have the rule of law breaking down, you're going to have gangs. As a matter of fact, every Haitian that's going to try to walk down the street, somebody's going to try to tell them they got to pay money to walk on this street.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
This is my section. Give me $10.
Yeah, they go to any business that are surviving. They'll just go, okay, you need your protection tax now, that kind of thing. they've let this thing get way, way, way out of control. And like I said, the one of the reasons why Haiti hasn't been able to develop well is because of the meddling of the West and their goodwill. So the West comes in and with really goodwill and okay, we're going to bring you clothes, we're going to bring you food, we're going to this and that, make a welfare state out of it, and then they're stuck with a country that doesn't have an economy and can't get its feet off the ground, so they walk away, and the place
and that, of
falls
course,
into
is
disarray.
And that, of course, leads to the expansion of the gangs.
Yes.
You know, and this is a situation that, ironically, so many Kenyan police would have actually probably already been trained in anyway. So that probably makes them better in this regard, because in certain parts of Kenya, you know, there's been a history of lawlessness. I'm not saying that they are like it today, but that's kind of what some Kenyan police would have actually already been trained in, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So Kenya is a much more stable country. They've had all sorts of difficulties of their own, tribal, the economy problems, all that other stuff. So, but they are advancing along. So they're fully aware of the problems that Haiti is facing, or much more familiar with them than we would be.
Yeah.
So I think they, having been a colonized nation, and Haiti having been a colonization that broke away, and that kind of thing, I think they're probably just a little bit, and just because of the color of the skin too. I think probably Haitians are pretty sick of white people coming down and telling them what to do, and then failing miserably and walking away.
Yeah, it's like, you must do this and you must do that and you must do the other. Yeah, it's you know, and they're probably sick to death of Westerners dictating to them. Yeah. Okay. Coming back local, Lococo is going to be holding a town hall meeting in Chippawa. So this is going to be 6 to 8:30 p.m. on Thursday, this Thursday coming, at Chippawa Lions Club Hall at 3970 Welland Street.
Yeah. Well, this is Lori Lococo is doing what she has been doing, and I noticed the other counselors are doing similar things. Mona Patel had one. One of the other counselors had another meet and greet. But of course, Lori's are very useful, because this is where she connects with the people, and those people who have grievances or whatever they may have can come to the and they're good explainers too. Because when somebody says, well, we want to do this and we want to do that, and how come we can't do that, she can tell you why you can or cannot do it, or why it's slow proceeding. Well, she can tell you, well, that's because the region has to do this part, or that's because we have to have an environmental study to do this or that. So she's very, 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 very aware of most of the things that are happening in a city. She takes her job very seriously there.
Oh, yeah. I think she takes her job more seriously than most other city councillors do.
Yeah.
All right. And there's no doubt about that. And you know, if you want to be expressing yourself and you're from Chippawa, Chris, Thursday, Chippawa Lions Club Hall at 3970 Welland Street, 6 to 8:30 p.m. And you know, she's very much interested, we know, in the areas, and I can certainly see things like local transit in Chippawa being an issue. The library, you know, that the library branch that they had, that could be an issue to some people, and you know, I'd be intrigued to hear. Right, I'm not going to be able to make it Thursday. I'm already otherwise engaged on Thursday evening.
Oh, well, the intrepid reporter, Dave Wheeler, Talking Niagara's intrepid reporter, Dave Wheeler, will be there.
Thank you, Dave. Love to hear about it. I'm not able to, and this is the second time I've not been able to. All right, but I'm going to try to get to the next one. I need a little bit more notice than 1 day or 2 days, because you sent me this yesterday.
So Lori's meetings are always good to go to. I find that her ability as an explainer is a big part of it.
Yeah.
When people have some sort of misconception of what the city can or cannot do, what the procedures are for having something, because you can just say, look, this road is a mess. Why can't we just fix it? Why can't what's so hard about putting a big blacktop? Of course, I'm making up this example. Then Lori could say, well, we don't fix this until we can get underneath it and do the sewers and upgrade the sewers and the drain lines underneath the road. So that's why road resurfacing may take longer than you think it should, because what we plan to do when we do tear up the road is get down and do the rain sewers and so on, upgrade them. So they could explain something like that, because you can tell, like you say, okay, well, look, they paved that street over there and they're not paving mine, and you get really mad and angry, and you think they're ignoring your city because it's a bad road and it needs to be fixed and so on and so forth. But once you get an explanation like that, you can understand then why they haven't got around to your road yet.
Well, that's the aim. It always seems, sometimes it seems weird that you live on streets where every street around yours has been done, but not yours.
Yeah. Well, I overheard them when they were down around your place, and I said, oh, well, we'll do all these roads over here. Wait a minute, that's where Peter Giblett lives. Oh, okay, we'll leave that one alone.
Actually, mine was one of the first done.
Oh, there you go.
Mine was one of the early serious separation ones done, way back in like 2012 or something.
Okay, Peter, tell us your political connection.
None.
How did you pull this off?
I call Wayne. I call Wayne Thompson. He says so. I call the mayor. He says I don't care.
Yeah.
I call Victor Peterangelo. He says I don't have the budget. I call the city clerk. He says yeah. But I phoned
Doug Ford. I phoned Doug Ford and said, "Oh, I'm stressed out because my road's not doing on." He says, "We'll go down to the corner stores, get a couple of beers. That'll fix you up."
Yeah, exactly. No, I just think it just happened to be, before mine was done, I think Drummond was done about 4 times before mine was done.
There you go. That's because Drummond, somebody on Drummond Road has more political influence. Sorry. Well, it might be a regional road too. Is Drummond a regional road?
I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure. I know Lundy's is, but Drummond, basically what happened is they did the entire length of Drummond Road. It took them 18 months to do it. Then 18 months afterwards, they did it all again. Because somebody had truly fucked up on that one.
Yeah. So I don't know. That was So anyway, that's what planning's all about. Yeah. But anyway, any kind of information you need, and if Lori doesn't have it on her fingertips, she will be able to get back to you on it. So this is a counselor who takes her job very, very seriously. Feedback from the community is very important. It's not just a meet and greet. If you have gripes, you go and talk to her about them. If you have concerns and questions, talk to her about it. You're going to get the answers. Yeah. Whether you like them or not, you're going to get them.
And probably, and I'll say probably the review reporter, Race Bateri, will be there, and we'll probably see not Friday, but maybe early next week, we'll see a report by him on this.
Yes. Anyway, it's always good. I've been to a couple of them, more than a couple, I think. But in any case,
Yep.
The thing that impressed me the last time we had one at the Lions meeting room there on Drummond Road, the road that gets paved way more than Peters Road does. The same road near Scott Street.
It never gets paved, but still.
Right across from the Gales gas station there on Scott Street. In there, that's the thing that I had that I had a takeaway. The one before that was her explainer about ward systems, and this particular one that the last one I was at I was pretty impressed how she could explain things to people and how she could tell them why and what and where. All these things. Like she's very, very good at it. Even if the answer she had wasn't so satisfactory, at least you knew what was going to be happening. And meaning not satisfactory, meaning like the city might not be able to do this or that because of good reasons, you know.
Yeah. And in fact, actually, one of the biggest challenges about it is that we often think, well, the city needs to fix this, but it's not the city's responsibility to fix that problem, right? The responsibility falls on the region or the province, or even sometimes federal, federal laws. And that's what makes this whole question about how we deal with all of this very interesting.
Yeah, they I don't know. It's just I don't know, it is a benefit if you can go there and just sit as if you don't have any gripe or any comments, that's okay. Just sit there and watch the procedure. This is it's more informal than city council meeting. Lori can answer a lot of questions all at once rather than have a million phone calls come her way. Not a million, 500,000. Right. Anyway, you know what I mean? And she can explain things anyway, and just get your feedback. What do you want out of this city? Where should you want this money being spent? You know,
okay. Just wondering, got some comments from David, but I'm
looking here at pop-ups. Robert De Niro, 81, is marrying his girlfriend of 45 years old. What is it with guys like that? They I don't know. They always have to have.
Yeah.
You know, even the best, most reasonable guy, a famous guy, always seems to have a girlfriend that's like anywhere from 30 to 40 years younger than him.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so Ontario's minimum wage is set to increase to $17.20 an hour starting 1st of October.
Well, good news, but and this is due to inflation, basically. So that this is a raise not being legislated, but it's tied to the inflation, and minimum wage has to be tied to an inflation so that it's still minimum wage. It doesn't decrease. The problem here I see is you're going to, in order to even to get a 1-bedroom apartment, the cheapest one you can in Toronto, let's say, you're going to need double that salary even to maintain yourself in Toronto. And I imagine it's not a whole lot different here. If you're making the minimum wage, or even if you're getting a raise in your salary, I don't think it's going to match the raise, the increases in rent, or the increases in food, the increases in gasoline, if you do have a car, or you're pooling with a car. it's nice to see that the minimum wage is going up. I can hear the complaints already about this is going to make it more expensive for restaurants or other places that rely on minimum wage because the cost is going to be transferred to the average person. But how do you expect the person to live, like that? Now, this also comes back to telling us what the production level of Canada has gone down mightily, and that has come up over and over and over again lately. I mean, there was sounds of this 4 or 5 years ago that Canada's productivity level is being reduced quite a bit, and it's going to be a major factor going forward. So when you do get a raise in pay, when the productivity level is declining, that makes matters worse. So say economists. So if you have a pie this big, and the next year you make a pie this big, and the next year you make a pie that big, that's the productivity of Canada. And then you have people who are struggling to survive, so they have to have they want at least a little bit of that pie, but and they get an increase so they can sustain themselves, but the pie isn't big enough, and that causes economic problems. I don't know how to solve this. People say go after the rich and all that. I'm not even sure that would work. I'm all in favor of it if it works. Definitely the rich don't pay enough. But these costs are going to be transferred down to us. Now, believe me, I think minimum wage should be at least that. I think it should be at least $20 an hour, if you ask me. However, how is this going to affect the rest of us? Are the rest of us going to go see a movie now? Are the rest of us going to go to a bar or restaurant anymore? We already find a declining clientele in these places in our recreational areas that people get jobs in. So if you've got a job as a minimum wage attendant at the confectionery in a movie theater, and there's five young people working there at night making money, selling popcorn and stuff like that at a movie theater. Well, if less people are coming into the movie theater and less people are buying that stuff, so you raise the
price of popcorn.
But you also raise the salaries of 4 of them and lay off 1.
And the other question here is, David here says, I predict a decrease in living standards and a decrease in population as a result of this.
Well, we've reported here, unfortunately, I didn't do it too sophisticatedly. But I added it on to something else we were talking about. There's a movement, a brain drain out of Canada. From the immigrants that have come here. So once the immigrants have come here, the ones that we want to keep, the accountants, the doctors, the engineers, and all that, find that that their opportunities are better in the United States. So once they're established here, then they try to get into the United States, both legally and illegally. So as say an engineer, he now can go into the United States, because he's established himself here, proved his worth. And then you can go to the States instead of staying here because the opportunities aren't. He or she wants to have a really good career, and if the opportunities here are less available, they're going to go somewhere else. Even illegal immigrants that come here on tourist visas and so on, or legal ones that come here on tourist visas and stuff, are heading south in larger and larger numbers, being smuggled into the United States. So Canada, for some reason, is not really what it shows to be. I mean, I heard it's a terrible economic forecast for Canada because we haven't fixed the flaws in our economy in the last, at least last 10 years. We are on a road to a declining economy until 2050. Because it's hard to turn back the policies that have put us where we are.
Yeah.
So, but
Right.
all in all, I'm in agreement with the increase. Obviously, when they talk about the wages being too high and that their profits are too high, seriously, look at the profits of the big grocers. Look at the profits of anyone else, the industries and stuff like that.
Well,
so they're really seriously, they're going to say, okay, we can't, we got to lay off our minimum paid workers because, I'm not getting enough bonus.
Well, somebody one time did a calculation that if you paid $1 an hour extra to every person in Walmart, across the whole of Walmart in the US and Canada, there'd be something like, they might lose $50 million in profit. With the company that's making billions in profit, what does 50 million matter?
Yeah.
Was the question that was being raised by the commentator at the
It's
time.
a very, very difficult thing. And that productivity level, and even Chrystia Freeland used to talk about it. She doesn't talk about it now because there's election coming up.
Yeah.
But she used to complain about that before too. The
economy. Productivity is bad here, yes.
And that's just it. Like when you think, oh well, we should be giving this and we should be giving that, and we should be building monuments and all these other things. The fact of the matter is, where are you spending your money? You have to reinvest in the economy. You have to reinvest in productivity. If you're going to have a good democracy, and it's very clear, the best democracies are those countries that have a very good standard of living. If you start to erode that standard of living, you're going to get social unrest. Look what's happening in the United States. My God, we got paramilitary people all over around the United States that think there's going to be a revolution. They're armed to the teeth. We can see the intransigence between the Republicans and the Democrats. We see it here in our politics, how Poilievre has attacked people rather than policies. I'm serious. When you have when your middle class is under strain, and they're going to you're causing great problems in your society, and it's really hard. It's really fine to say, well, we need this, we need that, we need more climate change, we need more of this, we need sweeter, kinder societies, and we can spend huge amounts of money studying Islamophobia or transgender issues or all those things. They all have to be done. But the major focus on every democracy should be sustaining its wealth, because without that wealth, you cannot sustain a country the way you want to, because the bottom line is money. If you want to build a new hospital or better healthcare system, you have to have the money to do it. If your country's productivity level is low, and we found out from the articles we've been reading that reinvestment in Canadian companies has declined. Some are moving out, but most of them are just staying put and do not reinvest in the country because they don't have confidence in the economy growing.
Yeah, you don't have to convince me of that. We got a major crisis of some of the best industries that we ever had came out of Canada and now gone.
You have to be realistic when you look at your country, and you want a country where everybody has great benefits, and you have great national parks, and you have climate change programs and all of these things. That's really good, and that all should be done. But the very first and fundamental object of your country should be economic sustainability.
Yes.
because economics is the fabric in which all these things are built.
Yep.
Wealth of democratic countries, particularly the Western democratic countries, has built these things, all the wonderful things we have, from the wealth that is produced by our country. And if we don't produce that wealth, you could talk about wealth distribution all you want, but if that pie is getting smaller, how do you distribute a smaller pie to more people?
Yeah, and that's a constant problem. So what they're basically saying here from this article is that for workers in the Greater Toronto area, they need to earn $25 an hour to make ends meet, according to the figures published by Ontario Living Wage Network last year. So this minimum wage isn't even getting anywhere close to that, let alone the economic problems that you're talking about. And both of those situations are very real.
Yes, very real.
Very real and very concerning. All right.
So that
I'm not meaning to take away anything from what you said, because that's absolutely perfectly valid. Productivity needs to go up, and we've got some significant Canadian businesses that I say which are no longer with us, which used to be world leaders.
Yeah, and one of the big points, that one of the things that has hurt our economic growth, of course, has been the irresponsible immigration policy of the Liberals. Now they have, this is where reality should come into play. This was an ideal, like the Liberals had this ideal that they're going to make a massively diversified country. They're going to bring people from all over the world, and we're going to have a very diverse economy, and we're going to bring in people from different parts of the world, and 30% of the people in Canada will have been born from outside the country by the year 2035, and we'll make a wonderful tapestry in the country, and that's all good. That's the ideal that was driving it. Instead of, we want a tapestry, we want to bring people from all over the world, all the best talent, in a way in which we can sustain that, in a way in which the economy can grow enough to sustain it. They didn't do that. They had the ideal, we were going to do this wonderful thing, without the realistic attitude. Ideals are fine. They're heartwarming. They feel good. We're going to be wonderful. We're going to build this wonderful new society. That ideal is fine. However, the reality has to be
a long way from it. Yeah.
So somebody has to shake you and say, yeah, that sounds really good. But it's just like you say, I'm going to be a world traveler. I'm going to go around the world. I'm going to see everything there is. And somebody shakes you and says, yeah, well, you don't have enough money to do that, pal. You can maybe go to a few places in Africa and Europe, but that's all you can do. So live with that.
Yeah. Where are you going to get the money for the plane trip, Dave? That type of thing, right?
Yeah. Or it's
I can see you don't even earn anywhere near enough for the plane ticket. That kind of thing. Yeah, that's where you need that reality hitting you. All right, I think we'll have to call it quits at that point.
Okay. Without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace. It's getting ugly in the Middle East.